everybody. This is Dave Roundtree and my co-host, Dr. Stephen Rourke, here for another exciting episode of The Devil's Advocate. Coming to you tonight pre-recorded, but we're coming to you anyway, in spite of all that. Good evening, Stephen.
Hey, David.
How are you doing tonight? It's always a pleasure when you show up.
That's good. I like that.
You had to see that one coming, right?
Oh, yeah.
Tonight we have two very special guests. We have Jamie Geller and we have Chandra Stull. Both of these young ladies have a very colorful presence in the paranormal field. They're on Facebook. Both of them have been involved in radio work, paranormal radio work. And both of them have been involved in actually doing paranormal investigations. And let's get started. First, Jamie, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, hello, David. Thank you again for having me on. It's an honor to be on your show. Well, I guess I don't have a whole lot of paranormal experience as you do, but I'm slowly learning. And like you said, I was on a paranormal radio show for a little while. And I'm just I went off of that for some reasons, but I'm just kind of taking it day to day now and just doing my own thing pretty much. And I like doing little guest spots here and there on the radio shows. It's still fun. I miss it. I love being on the radio. Chandra and I are kind of a little duo. Each other are, but not a whole lot been going on with me though. But I've just been living life day to day, and just to give you a little bit, I did a radio show for about, I think it was about six months or so, and enjoyed it, and I don't regret it. But there were some issues with the radio that I chose to leave, and we can go on further to that here in a minute. But that's about it for now.
Well, we're going to explore that in a little bit here, but let's hear from Chandra. Chandra, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, David. Real good, and this is kind of awesome. I totally miss radio. Yeah, I would love to get back into it. It was kind of sad what happened to me, and that it didn't make any sense what happened to me. I'm learning and growing for sure. You get in the business a little bit. You start meeting people, and it's hard to fish out the fake from reality. That I can tell you.
Yeah. Besides, you get to meet all kinds of strange and unusual and bizarre people. And speaking of which, we're going to go into that a bit, actually, tonight.
Yeah.
Now, you two are kind of like this dynamic duo, and you actually even favor one another a little bit. You could actually pass as sisters, I think, which is kind of cool.
Awesome.
But you guys were actually working for a radio show. You were both working for the same show. And I am pretty fully aware of some of the things that went on there and who it's involved with, but we won't mention any names or anything on this. But I think it's important that our listeners kind of get an understanding of the subculture that is riding on the coattails of people who are actually doing paranormal investigating and even people that are doing bona fide research. There's this subculture of, I like to call them hangers-on, because they don't really do anything for the field themselves other than milk it for what they can get out of it. And your experience basically was involved with just such a person. So you were both working like at a radio station or at a radio show. Station is an incorrect term for this. And it started out pretty good, right?
Mm-hmm. I'll give you a little history on it. Chandra and I knew each other before we started the show. We met on Twitter, and we clicked right away. Come to find out, she lives in an area where I grew up in, and I'm originally from. She lives like an hour from my brother and my family, and we just connected really well. And then she started doing the show, and then the person who was in charge of the show at the time kind of sent me this odd message at one point, and I didn't really know who he was. And I told Chandra about it, and she kind of took care of the situation for me. Because Chandra and I tell each other everything. Everybody's got to know that we are like sisters. And yes. So she took care of it, and then after that, I was asked to do promotions for the show. So I started doing promotions, and then after the first or second show with Chandra, I was asked to be on as a co-host. So I said, sure, what the hell, I'll give it a shot. And everything went good in the beginning, and I've met a lot of amazing people that I've created great relationships with from the show. Like I said, I don't regret it, but then it got to a point where I just felt like I was being manipulated and brainwashed, and it almost felt like a full-time job, and I didn't want that. And with no pay, exactly, asking to do more and more and more, and I was just like, what the fuck, this is not what I thought it was going to be like. And then, it got to a point where the lies were being told, and now I realized they were lies. At the time I was getting more brainwashed because, I guess I'm not an egotistical person, but I guess my ego was being stroked and being told all these good things and stuff, and, you're like, okay, well, I'm doing good. I want to be, do well for the show. I want the show to do well, so, and just continue to do it. And then, it came down to it, another person was brought in, and it was, so I took a slight leave from the show for a little while because I had some things going on in my life. I said I'll be back, but I just need to figure some things out. And on top of all that wasn't really perceived well, I think. And then there was a lot of I think sexual harassment that Chandra and I took from the show. I know, like to say that. But
it's an understatement, this sexual harassment.
Yeah, so basically, on top of that, and with the main person of the show, and on top of the lies and the drama factor of everything that had to happen with the show, just was like, I didn't want to be a part of it. I don't want the drama. I don't want the bullshit. And I just said, peace out. I'm done with it. And, I'm sure Shauna will go in a little more detail about things because she kind of got the brunt of it toward the end of the show, being targeted and being called names and put down, and it was just not right. So we both chose to leave because we stood by each other and we said, we'll just fucking move on, and we just faded away from it. So I'll let you, Chandra, kind of take over and give your part of it.
Before we go to Chandra, I want to give Stephen the opportunity to cross-examine.
Sure.
Oh, absolutely.
Stephen, do you have questions at this point?
I do, yeah. So I noticed that a passing mention was made of sexual harassment, but a lot of people have varying degrees of understanding of that. For example, in the workplace, some work cultures are such that if you tell someone they look beautiful today, that's considered sexual harassment. I hardly believe that's what you're talking about. So could you expand a little bit upon what you mean by sexual harassment? That would be, first, Jamie, you tell what that meant to you and some of your experiences. And then, of course, when Chandra is up, she'll tell some of her experiences.
Sure. I don't want to get into explicit detail about certain things, but when I first, before I got on the show, the main person of the show, pretty much, sent me a message, pretty much, I guess, what is it called, like sexting or sending, like, you getting in the shower, stuff like that. And I'm like, what the fuck is this, And I screenshotted it to Chandra and stuff. And
gosh! All right, hold on, Jamie. I'm sorry, Jamie. I'm gonna have to erase the text I was about to send you.
Damn it!
I'm sorry. Continue.
Okay, all right.
So you were getting about that later now. I hope he didn't send any pictures.
No, it's thank God, no. It's not like it wasn't offered and it was declined. for sure. At some point. I've made my mistake in doing some things in my life, but, shit, I'm like, I don't want to see that shit. So,
I just want to interject a funny story here. I get a lot of women send me photographs.
Mm-hmm.
Skype.
Interesting.
Well, I've saved them all, and I'm going to make a coffee table book. And I'm going to market it as art because it's so abstract in its display
Oh, for the love of God.
of incredible topography that defies explanation. So I just wanted to say that because men have this problem as well. And it's a very disturbing thing to open up your PM in Facebook and see something you can't really identify without really turning it around 3 or 4 times and then realizing, oh my God, I can't believe they sent this. So I saved them all, and I have about 2,800 photographs now. And some show faces, which will be kind of interesting.
Oh my gosh, that many photos? Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah. Well, I've been doing this a long time, so
yeah.
So I've always entertained the idea of making kind of this artsy coffee table book,
Pretty darn interesting. I kind of like
Isn't there a law? Don't you have to have the permission of the person in the photograph, their permission to show the face?
Well,
we know this guy in Baltimore who knows a lawyer.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's a callback.
The thing is if it's sent to you unsolicited, it's very difficult to sue on that because Facebook is a public domain. So anything you put on Facebook essentially becomes public domain, whether you claim you own a copyright to it or not, because it's assumed in the operating wordage when you agree to join Facebook, you relinquish all rights to anything that you post on there. That's part of the terms of service. So people who say that, they don't have a right to do this, I'm sorry, but if you're on Facebook, you signed away the right to control your images on there.
That's true. Mark Zuckerberg owns your picture.
Now,
exactly. What would be interesting? What would be interesting is if they did take me to court, because that would be a court case to observe. I would like to request recording it.
Yeah.
Because I would like to see them explain why they're sending pictures of their nannies. And
have you been sending those, David? Have you been sending those pictures back out? Because I was wondering why your Twitter was trending as a hashtag needs grooming. See picture.
Yes, actually.
Oh Lord.
And my Twitter account actually I've out-tweeted my tweet allowance on several occasions because of the show. So, I've never had that happen before.
Well, in all seriousness, though, I did want to hear about Jamie's definition of sexual harassment, and then what some of her experiences were. I know, not in we don't want you to relive anything horrible, but maybe to the best of your comfort level, explain the types of things that you had been subject to.
Well, try to think how to put this. I mean, I want to say this. I would never, despite of my differences with this person, I would never screenshot stuff. I would never share things with anybody or put it on anywhere. I'm not that type of person. I'm not out to be revengeful to somebody, But, there were times when I would be getting texted from this person all day, all the time. What are you doing? Why haven't you talked to me? This and that. And I'm like, and the stuff he would say, just about me and my physical features and about what he would do on the side. And I think that he lied about to try and get me to open up, sexual things, to get me to open up to him, And there was a point where he went in detail about sexual things and stuff, and I'm just sitting in the background like,
married
whoa.
man.
Yeah.
Married man. Yeah, well, I don't know about now, but yeah.
But
wow.
it's hard because I don't want to go too much in super detail about things, but
well, and you don't need to. I mean, Stephen just wants to get a general idea of the content of the stuff that you were getting. I mean, we don't want you to.
Yeah, it was definitely full on. It was almost like porno talk, I guess, in a way.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is it true that you had been sent a photo? You were confused. Is this true? There's some rumor on the internet. You thought it was a baby's thumb, and that's what ended your relationship with this talk show host.
This could be true. I'm not going to confirm it, but
this is what happens. This is what happens when you let an academic get involved in a sexual harassment conversation.
Classic.
All right.
That's fucking classic.
Very descriptive. So maybe Chandra can step to the plate and share, maybe to the best of her comfort level. Again, we don't want anyone to relive anything terrible or kind of, we want you to exercise your Fifth Amendment rights and not really mention anything you've been involved with. But we do want to give the audience a flavor of just the type of things attractive people can be subject to in the paranormal when it becomes about something other than the research and the interest.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, absolutely. That's what I was brought on to. I was like a piece of meat, to draw people to come on. I felt very much used. As to, I was just kind of like the dumb blonde, and I was addressed in that manner,
Oh my gosh.
Oh, absolutely. I was addressed in, like the little whippy said, you go get us some talent, honey. We don't need to hear from you. You just get us a talent, and throw your boobs at him, and, you'll get me some. That's exactly what it felt like for me. Just his idiot. Yeah. Mm. And, no, not happy. I kept my mouth shut, and there was this point where, when he was coming on to my girlfriend, and then she brought in her another friend to help out on, nights where we were kind of out of people. And we needed an extra body to fill in for like chat room and whatever. And, he was going in on the side and making passes at her. And, there was a point where I was like, holy crap, there's no way. And then we had a private chat, and I went off on him. That's not cool. I said, you wouldn't want somebody to address your wife and daughter in this manner. What are you doing? You think, man, you have women in your life. Why is it okay to go and just because they're not, like a relative or intimate with you, why is it okay to treat them, like you wouldn't want your wife and daughter to be treated? I went off like that. You don't. Very misogynistic individual, extremely.
But it seems like that common sense talk would have gotten through to him, and of course he changed his ways, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, a little bit. No, he did not change his ways in any way. He just kind of. I noticed the drawback for me, and shortly after this conversation, Jamie will attest to it. He started he tried to recruit Jamie to fire me, get me to quit. Oh, yeah. My girlfriend, my best friend. He's like, she was like, you got to tell her, somehow get her to quit. I'm like, Jamie, and Jamie was like, I'm not having any part of that. She's my best friend. And I floored, and I'm out getting this on the side from Jamie. You would not believe what he asked me to do today. And then she would tell me, and I'd be like, oh my God, and thank God she had my back. But it was just disgusting. And the drama for unpaid work, we were volunteering our time, and it was coming off like a job, and instead of being fun and jumping into something like of entertaining, we were supposed to be, the excitement of getting to talk to people in the paranormal field, people that are on television, and that was the excitement, and getting to interview them and be serious. It was all the drama, unnecessary drama, ridiculous.
I feel kind of left out because when we were doing our last gig, I would get the guests, I would man the console, I would manage the chat room, and every once in a while Steven would show up, and I just wish maybe he would have sent me a picture or suggested a hug or something, because he just never. Yeah, he never did anything. I mean, I feel kind of left out in all this. No, I joke about this.
A debt is old.
A joke about this, but this is a very serious problem. And it's a problem that I'm seeing become more and more prevalent, and it's associated with people who do nothing for the field. Mm-hmm. They are people who are basically scavengers, who are hanging around, trying to be seen with people who are movers and shakers in the field, trying to hang on their coattails, trying to ride other people's accomplishments to their own fame and misfortune or whatever. And, that seems to be the melting pot for where all this stuff seems to be emerging from.
And that's another thing is it was a constant name drop fest with this person, like it was going to impress me or something like that. And I'm like that. I don't really care.
I sat next to this person. I sat next to this person. Do you want to see my penis? That's what it felt like. I'm like, so you sat 2 seats down from this really famous individual, so I need to see your penis? I'll take so, dude.
It's funny. It's as people who are associated with media, which now I'm suddenly thrust into that. We're told, how to behave around these people because they're a joke. Mm-hmm. Literally, they're a joke, and they're seen as a joke. I mean, people laugh about them behind their back, but it's a media outlet, and so you respect the media outlet aspect of it. And so when you go on and you do an interview with people like this, you stay true to your mission. You stay true to yourself, even though the person may be a total douchebag, because it's about your message. It's not about them. Another problem I have with these people is they spend more time on their show talking about themselves and what they've done than talking to the guest and getting information from the guest.
Can I say this? It was I take the paranormal field seriously. I've lost my husband. I take it seriously, and I've learned stuff from the show. No doubt that I was on it. I learned about what's real, what's fake, what this and that. And I've taken that with me, But that was another thing. We'd get on the show, and it turned out to be like a joke, almost getting on there and just making it out, making up these lies and having fake people call in. And I understand you need to get an audience. I understand that shit. But it got to the point where it's it just became a joke to me. What the hell are we doing? You're making this all just to be funny and stupid and making fun of this and that, and it drove me nuts at that point. After we had one person on the show, and I found out some real truth, I was done after that. I said, that's when I took my hiatus, and I had to get some shit taken care of, and I just thought about stuff a lot, and I was like, I don't want to be a part of something that just makes fun of the paranormal field in a way, and it drives me nuts because I take it seriously.
Yeah, it's it's actually kind of sad because there are radio hosts out there and people who own radio enterprises on the net that take their job very seriously. Mm-hmm. They're trying to do something not only for themselves, but as a service to the paranormal community in itself. Mm-hmm. And these people think no one knows. That's the funny part about it. Everyone mm-hmm. thinks that they're getting away with something, you know, and we all talk. Mm-hmm. Everybody that's mm-hmm. anybody in this field, we talk with each other. You know, I'm very good friends with, and I have been very good friends with a lot of the movers and the shakers in the field for many, many years. Because I've been on the circuit for a long time. I speak, and I've met these people and had long conversations with them, and we've struck up friendships. I may not agree with what they do, but I respect them as a friend, and I don't go there with them. And they do the same with me. I mean, you know, they know my buttons. They don't push them. I don't push theirs. We avoid that aspect of our conversations because there's no point in it because we disagree there. And we know we disagree, so we don't go there. Which proves that people can be, you know, at total polar opposites from each other and still have a good friendship by respecting each other's, you know, platform. Mm-hmm. I respect their platform. I just don't buy into a lot of it. And they respect my platform, and they may agree or disagree with me, but we just don't go there because there's no future in that. We concentrate on what we have in common with each other, and that's what we build our friendships on. But, you know, we've talked about this with, you know, I know some big names out there, and when we run into each other at conferences, we sit down and we shoot the shit with each other, and we talk about these people, and we laugh about them, mm-hmm. you know, but they have no clue that we all know what's going on, mm-hmm. and that we're playing this, you know, with a poker face, which is what we have to do.
Right.
And I've watched it get worse and worse in the last 4 or 5 years. I mean, these people are like, they're scavengers, they're bottom feeders. Mm-hmm. And they're using all sorts of, get this, Stephen, they're using all sorts of unethical practices.
Imagine that.
Yeah, to realize their self-vision of themselves that everyone else is sort of seeing through.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So actually, I was really curious about a detail. I don't mean to strain on kind of the things that might make you uncomfortable, but I think it's important that...
But he will anyway.
Right?
But I think it's important that people know just what you've been subjected to. So, in the interest of clarity, when you said this person mentioned, hey, I met someone famous, and the quote was, do you want to see my penis? Was that literally how it went, or was that the sense you got?
Pretty much the sense, and trying to draw me into agree to want to see it was weird. It's almost kind of like the molester offering the kid candy. I'll show you mine if you show me yours, and that's kind of like where I felt he was going, and you know, and I'm like, oh no, you know how you're trying to be nice about it, you know, like let it go one time, and then it.
I don't know what you're talking about, but please continue.
Trust me. No, it's kind of like that. It was like it felt very much like the man off in the white windowless van driving down the street. You know, here, little girl, I give you candy. You know, like if you show me what goes on underneath that belt of yours. You know, that's what it was very much like.
He was very much your senior.
Kind of like dangling things, you know, in front of you.
Word choice. Word choice.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Bad grammar. Dangling participles.
But no, what I meant was this person very much your senior, as if it were that power dynamic in an older and a younger person, or you're just trying to give a vibe for the creepiness of it?
A vibe for the creepiness.
Okay.
But yeah, he was kind of like, it was his podcast, you know, it was his show. And I was just asked to come aboard and hang out. I think you'd be really good at this. And, oh, sure, and you'll get to talk to these really great people in the paranormal field. So, of course, immediately I assumed I was being taken seriously. When, lo and behold, it was just like, look, I get this dumb blonde to come hang out with my show to draw people in. That,
okay.
And it made me uncomfortable.
Because you
caught on. I really did. I slowly caught on to realized that I was being used as a eye candy.
You an object.
Yeah. Oh,
Chandra and I
so
had many
Jamie and I both were. Yeah. Because, he did it to her, and then when Jamie kind of, he'd turn around and come at me, or vice versa. Because it was like he was going down the line to see who he can get to fall into place for him.
Okay, so now what was help us understand the final straw that kind of made you two unify over the decision of, this is enough already?
Ooh. You want to take that one, Chandra?
No. Well, it's very difficult not to mention names. Mm-hmm. But when...
well, then let's hit the pause button for a second. Maybe this is David's decision or Eric's, I don't know, but what's if there's someone who's out there victimizing people, what's the hesitation in telling the world who a scumbag is? I'm confused.
Well,
David, Eric, is there a reason why any of us are hesitant?
As far as the network goes, Stephen, I'll tell you this. If somebody, as long as there's documentable proof to back up the claims in any way, shape, or form, I have no problem with it from the network.
Well, there is that baby's thumb picture out there.
That's true.
None of us are clear as the driven snow or whatever. We've all done things in our past that we're not necessarily proud of to some degree, but we don't continue to perpetrate those same stupid-ass mistakes over and over again. And the thing is what happens, Stephen, when you come public with something like this, you become a target. And you know how these people are, because we've had our own troll issues in the past. They will do everything they can to publicly destroy you. And they have no life, so they can dedicate their entire life to doing that. Mm-hmm. So, and it's worse for women because women are somewhat
vulnerable.
Vulnerable, easier to get to emotionally, and it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing.
By a woman.
Yeah, it's completely and totally embarrassing for a woman to even admit to this sort of thing. So we have an issue with rape in this country where much of it goes unreported because the woman is afraid to be associated with the whole thing of this happened to her when in fact it was a violent.
Victimize the victim.
Exactly. The victim becomes victimized. I mean, and totally more abuse heaped upon it, where they already may have some psychological issues from enduring the crap in the first place, and then they heap up and monkey pile on top of that with, lies and other things, and women tend to get overpowered and overwhelmed by that, so there's a hesitancy actually to come forward. I mean, you and I, we have no problems because we just go out and shit all over them and then rub their nose in it. But it's different with women because it's a different mindset. Women perceive things much differently than we do. And they have sacred areas that we don't have. And those are the behavioral things that fall into play with this situation. And these scumbags know that. They prey upon that weakness in order to be as effective as they are at silencing this sort of stuff.
Yeah, I understand that. What you just said makes sense, and it seems well thought out. I hadn't thought of that, David. So sure, we should continue to be obtuse, but again, just speak to the level of comfort you can without, I guess, revealing names. I will add, though, that a quick Google search shows that this whole business of rape on a blog called "How Can One Chandra Be So Levy?" It says that he did attempt rape, but neither of you knew it was happening.
Well, that's a bit nefarious.
Turns out,
What?
this is what it claims. Turns out you thought it was an acorn stuck in bubble gum. Turns out he was attempting to assail you.
Oh, for the love of God.
Oh my God. That is amazing.
You know, it's you can laugh about this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's a serious problem, and it really is.
It is.
And I don't mind telling you that I get PMs all the time from women who are fairly attractive that are friends of mine who complain to me about this, and they ask me what to do. You know, what should they do? And it's hard for me to tell them what to do because what I would do and what they would feel comfortable doing are really miles apart. Because what I do is I go in and I find everything I can on this person, and then I do like a radio show and I expose it all. But what makes it so bad is it's a growing problem because there's no control over these people. And in this case, you know, whoever's controlling that network is not doing their job and controlling their people. And eventually that's going to reflect very poorly not only on the person doing it, but on the person that's enabling it to happen by not reacting to it.
Right.
Now, you know, you may sit there and say, oh, well, you know, I have no reason not to trust this person. You know, he's been on my network for all these years. He's never done anything like that. Really, how many complaints have you had that he explained his way out of? You know, one, I can understand, two, maybe, but three or four or five or six, after a while, you know, it's becoming a pattern. And if you continue to keep your head buried in the sand, it's going to come back and bite you in the ass somewhere down the road. And everyone's going to look at you and say, why'd you let that happen? So, you know, radio hosts and radio or network owners don't think about what people are saying and the ramifications it could have long term because they also have this buddy-buddy relationship with all these big names out in the field.
Right.
But I'm going to tell you something. Those big names are going to drop you like a hot potato when you become a liability to their own careers.
Definitely.
So,
Yeah.
There was a thing, I think, when I first started, it became, you know, I was very trustworthy in this person. You know, he'd add me on his private accounts and, you know, passwords and this. And, you know, he'd talk to me like, you know, oh, I'd do anything for you. I'd back you up in any situation. And, you know,
sweethearted the hell out of us.
Big time, you know. So he totally, you know, brainwashed me for a while.
Oh, I love you. You're so wonderful, and you're so beautiful, and I would back you up. You're one of my greatest friends, and I would never let anything happen to you. And I totally
offered to
take
send
your
money
side.
and help you with this and that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeesh. Well, now let's after my interruption, then let's go back to the straw that broke the camel's back as best you can without the names.
Well, basically, there was a person, when I took my hiatus, there was a person who was brought on who I think was considered to be a love interest for the main person, and they became to be quite good friends. And, you know, I'd still be involved in the shows here and there, and I'd see things and watch things, and there was a posting that was put up that the person who was brought in put up and didn't include my name, and that kind of was brought to my attention. And so I made a comment on it, and you know, this person came back with a smart-ass comment saying, oh, I guess there's ranks in your names or something like that. And I was like, there ain't no ranks, I don't care, but it's just like, what's going on here, you know? Am I pretty much being pushed out? Is that what you want? Because, you know, that's fine. It doesn't bother me, you know? So that kind of is what started it to begin. And then I think within the next day or two, there was a posting put on the planning page that was just for the group. And it was basically directed from this person who was brought in. And it was directed toward Chandra, pretty much.
It was awful. Yeah.
It was awful. I think I still have it saved. And
yeah, I wish you could find the names that I was called. I was called a cougar, and that I was, I had minions. I was, it was like, where is this stuff coming from? What minions? I just have these droves of people behind what? So, and it would be kind of like in an office situation, the vice president and the president, and they put you, they hone in on you in front of all your coworkers and demoralize you and call you names. And like it was so unprofessional. It was beyond unprofessional. And that I just kind of backed away. I didn't even quit. I just walked away.
Mm-hmm. I put a posting on there addressing the situation. I said, look, I can't remember my exact words, but I said, I don't want no drama. I don't care about this stuff. I will take a step back. Whatever you want to do with the show is your business. And Chandra and I had our talk later, and we both, I told him, I said, we're done. Chandra and I are done. He didn't take that as an exception because I was speaking for Chandra, because Chandra didn't want to deal with it because she was upset.
No, I was like, that was awful.
And I'm like, well, who are you to tell me you're not accepting it? That's what I'm telling you, and this is it, and that's done. You move on with your life and your new girlfriend, whatnot, and be done. And pretty much just after that, I just let it go and just walked away from it all, and that was done, and didn't hear from him again. So that was pretty much it. And Chandra and I, we just wanted to take a step away from it and walk away without any more drama, and just, and after that, Chandra and I got so many messages from people saying how horrible the show is, and it's just self-promoting about themselves, and
you'd be surprised who came to our rescue. Especially myself after witnessing the note that, the statement on our forum page, to all the coworkers, and just like I was floored, by who I really found out who my friends were and who were not.
Well, this is what we're going to do. If and I want you girls to follow up with me. If you get any feedback from this individual whatsoever, we will go and do a show dedicated to exposing not only him, the network he works for, and I would love to, if this happens, for you to give us any documented evidence you have of stuff they've said to you, and we will expose it. So hopefully they'll leave you two alone, and they won't mess with you.
I hope so.
But if
we never mentioned the swinger part.
Yeah.
Do you know what he would do to? He claimed he was a self-proclaimed swinger. He and his wife were swingers, so it made it okay for him to.
Yeah, I noticed he listed his marriage as an open relationship. So, but like
swingers, wait, I'm unclear. Does that mean like dancing?
Yeah, right. That's what it means.
It was a permission slip, like some kind of permission slip to screw around, I guess. I don't know, but...
Well, I'm confused. I'm confused on a few points. I must be hanging out in the wrong crowds. I thought Cougar was
lack of morals. It's called.
But I thought Cougar was a compliment. I'm confused.
It's not. Because that puts me as like some kind of desperate woman.
Not in the sense that she wrote.
Honestly,
hold the phone. I have to make a quick note to self. Cougar is
desperate woman in her 40s. You can't get it.
Okay. See, there's a sexual dividing line here, Stephen. When we hear the word cougar, we think a hot-looking older woman. When a woman hears cougar, she thinks of sexual predator out to get younger men.
Oh, my dear.
So
but that's
a different meaning to them based on derogatory use of it.
Yes.
When I use the term, it's non-derogatory. We're like showing appreciation for a woman who apparently has her shit together and has taken really good care of herself and is an interesting person to be around. That's not derogatory use of it. But there are people who use it as a derogatory term when referring to women
That's exactly right. That's exactly how it was put toward Chandra. It was very much derogatory.
It was meant to
And it's
hurt.
the context, I guess, right? If it's got to be the context too. Like, hey, you're a cougar and you want to see my penis, then you're like, wait a second.
Yeah, exactly. But what we will do, Steve and I will do, is if you get any flack from them, because we haven't mentioned their names, we will expose not only them, but we'll expose the network they're on, and I will word of mouth expose the network to everyone that I know that's anybody in this field. So I don't think you'll hear any feedback from them, or if you do, rest assured that the rest of the world will know it as well, because this kind of crap needs to stop. It reflects poorly on other people trying to do legitimate radio out there. And the only people that are going to police it up are the rest of us who are out here watching this crap happen. So,
appreciate that.
Well, we appreciate you telling your story to us so that we can reveal some of the stuff that is going on that's very unsavory behind the scenes in this field.
And hopefully tonight puts you in a power position, which is perhaps something Chandra and Jamie haven't felt in a while in relationship to this problem. So you're in the power position. It's called leverage. You have leverage. David and I have lock and load. And we'll proceed from this point forward.
Sounds good.
I mean, we had no qualms about publicly taking apart, like Mark Macy, for example, who was a very high-powered roller in the whole ITC movement. While Stephen's phone got hacked, no lawsuits appeared. And the same thing with Andy Kopic. I was threatened with all sorts of lawsuits, and my attorneys laughed at it. Because they said we will have the lawsuit in Superior Court in New York City, and we dare him to try to come in and explain how he proves ghosts are real. So,
oh, good Lord!
It's a ridiculous joke. Any threat of a lawsuit is a ridiculous joke.
But can I also say, though, that there's other people that worked for the show that were good to us,
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're not condemning the whole situation there, because I have friends there, too. But
David,
the friends that I have there need to open their eyes to this. And for whatever reason, they need to reassess their situation, because this is a liability on them.
Oh, yeah.
A huge liability on them. And I said my piece when I disassociated myself from the network. And I told the network owner in a private message exactly why I was doing it. And nothing has been done. So that's fine. And I'm not mentioning any names, but if you guys get fallout from this, we will rip it apart and we will expose every traffic ticket they've had in the last 10 years. So, I mean, hopefully, they'll get the message. Hopefully it'll stop. And people can threaten me all they want to. I mean, because, I don't care. I mean, I really don't care. I mean, I was doing this long before, they were like drinking milk from their mama's titties. and people come and go. And people like that go. They don't stick around very long because, again, they have nothing to add to the field. It's positive. The people that are out there doing the work and demonstrating that work, they're going to be around for a long time. The people that are riding on people's coattails are not.
Now, David, I get the sense we're short on time, but I think it was Chandra trying to say something just before I believe I interrupted earlier.
Well, yeah, and we're not really that short. We're starting to get a little short. And remember, we're pre-record, so we have a little leeway here. So
I guess my question is, what was it, Chandra, you were about to say?
Oh, I was about to say that, believe it or not, this outfit that the individual took up with, that just came riding in and exploiting itself they basically used it for their advertising, their outfit. It just became completely about that. So all the people that were on that show to be there to work and to be legit and enjoy the interview and privilege to talk to people that are in a place where they're book writers, important people. We talked to doctors and scientists and, people that are experts in the field. We had this privilege, and we were there to enjoy it, and everybody that was there legit was run off by the outfit that were so much discussing. And it was sad because these people were good people. We all were there legit, and then we got weeded out.
But now help me understand, you're saying something about they became like an advertising millhouse, just churning out ads instead of being dedicated to the work and the interviews?
Yeah. And then some of the stuff that they were pumping and advertising, I got the feel that this whole outfit was almost like a pyramid scheme of sorts.
Oh, I get it.
You're actually correct.
Yeah.
You're correct on that.
It felt very much, it was like a paranormal pyramid scheme to get people to buy into, these fantastical ghost hunts.
Let me clarify.
They were being, I felt they were robbing innocent people that were, in for the thrill and the adventure to be involved, and they were being taken for a ride.
Let me clarify this for you, Stephen. What they were doing is, of course, they have no money, so they can't afford an attorney either, so I'm not really worried. They have no money, so they would pre-sell tickets to an event long before they would even book the space for the event. And then if they couldn't book the space, then something would happen and there was no refunds.
Oh, boy.
And people would lose their money. And they owe a bunch of people money. They owe facilities money. And I got all the goods on that. I'm holding on to that. So if they want to get nasty about it, we can get real down and dirty and expose everything about their whole operation. I took the time. I took about a month's time and dug into everything I could find on these people. And they have quite a colorful past as far as their operational MO goes. But again, they're operating a business that isn't a legal business. There's no LLC involved in it. There's no legal documentation of the business. There's no liability protection of the business. So each and every one of them are personally liable for any debt that's incurred. And for those of you out there, those of you who are out there who know who I'm talking about, victim, need to keep that in mind, that you can go after these individuals legally, separately, and own everything they own to pay your debt, because
that's
they
beautiful
protection. So I'm just adding that. And again, we're not mentioning any names here. But this and these people are not alone. There are other groups out there. There's several promoters who have practiced this and ended up getting caught with their pants down and were put sort of out of business temporarily.
Word choice.
Yes. On purpose. So I
was going to suggest we call this show Leverage, but maybe it should be called "Can You Say Payday, Ladies?"
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead. I was just going to say that these people, because they have no corporate protection, are personally liable for their accrued debts. Mm-hmm. And that's a small claims court issue that just about everybody can afford. Mm-hmm. Not that I'm telling people what to do. And most of these venues depend on that money to help them operate, to help them maintain the grounds, to help them keep the places open for other people to be able to investigate it. So when you stiff a location, you're stiffing the whole community. Mm-hmm. So
exactly,
I'm just adding that in there as a little grist for the mill there, because these people do not have legal businesses. They, in some cases, they don't realize that you have to bring in a guest, you have to pay SAC a certain amount of royalties to be able to do that. And in many states, there are laws about talent that you have to comply with. And, of course, none of these people have done that.
Yeah, for the folks who don't know what you're talking about, that's the Screen Actors Guild.
Right. And
Exactly.
SAG, I meant to say. And you know, if you're doing this sort of work and these people are under contract as talent, you have to, whether they are members of the SAG or not, doesn't matter. You still have to comply to the laws that SAG has in your state. Now, some of these people operate their businesses legally and choose to do it in a state where SAG has very little power, and that's fine. I mean, that's a business decision. But on areas that it does apply, you have to have a license locally. For example, if it's in New York and you're doing a show in New York, you have to have you have to have a permit to do it if you're bringing in talent, even if you're not from that state. Mm-hmm. There's a certain fee that you pay in order to do the show, and that's for all sorts of things, liability reasons and everything else. So most of these people have no clue about the legalities about what they're doing. Most of these people have no clue, period. So most of these people have no liability insurance for their event. So if you get injured, you're not protected.
Oh, wow.
And this whole thing about signing waivers, a waiver isn't worth the paper it's written on.
Mm-mm.
Because you can't sign away your rights.
Right, because your rights are imbued by your creator under the authority of the Constitution.
That's exactly right. And under particularly the state constitution of the area where it is, and then, of course, back to the federal constitution. So, you know, a waiver is worthless. You can sign a waiver, you can sign, oh, I agree, you know, that I won't sue you. But, see, that all goes down when someone gets hurt. It's all fun and games till someone loses an eye.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Exactly.
you know, they come in and they sue you, and you say, well, I have this waiver. And they say, well, the state doesn't recognize a waiver. And you're screwed. So,
Right. By what authority was this waiver granted? Oh, well, you know, I wrote it up in my mom's basement while stuffing another Hot Pocket down my fat gullet.
Yeah. I was in my jockey shorts, and I was working on Word, and I just wrote it all up because I copied it from some piece of document that I found on the internet, so it must be true.
Well, I was deeply pondering baby's thumbs. I came up with this contract.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, you know, certainly
it's shameful because it hurt good people. This individual involving himself with an outfit that I mean, he's got to know that it was bullshit from the beginning, but I don't know if he desperately needed to get in this chick's pants. So he like
word choice.
Exactly. Hey, at least I'm not swearing.
I love her.
Well, we're all speechless after that one.
But he wanted so bad in her pants that he accepted anything. And then she completely took over his show, ran all the people that were involved in running it, did hard work for being free and not being paid. These people did a hard work to bring this show and, you know, advertise, get the talent, you know, get the interviews going, and to essentially have a awesome time. And yeah.
I know we're boring you, Stephen, but do you have to type something?
Yeah.
No. I'm making it. I'm learning.
Is it sledgehammers on the keyboard or what?
No, I'm making a note to myself. Right after the note about cougars, I'm making a note about evidently wanting to get in the pants. I shouldn't say that either.
Awesome.
I'm learning a lot tonight.
Chandra will teach you.
You are always learning.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, boy, we are. Let me tell you. But you ladies came across, first of all, very, very believable. You know, you presented your information in a professional manner, even though we had a lot of fun with it.
Of course.
Joked around. I mean, you know, you guys are totally believable in what you're saying. And after what I've done research-wise, none of this surprises me at all, because I actually found out about you two doing my research. So, and your involvement about it.
We got no reason to lie. Chandra and I don't want
you have nothing to gain.
I'm glad, though, that I got run off, because I wouldn't have wanted to keep going and then get caught up, and then all of a sudden, next thing you know, I'm being sued because, so, and I don't want my name tied to lies and thievery, because some of these people that I've interviewed in the past are friends, and to this day still Facebook and Twitter friends. Right. And I wouldn't want, because it's a color, now it's a colorful gray area, this, the podcasts of which we speak and no names are mentioned. And I don't want to, be able to, if I ever get involved again in another program, I don't want them to go, oh, that's that Chandra from so-and-so, and, I would have eventually, I would have had this name attached to me, and thank God I got out of it in time. Jamie and I got out of it in time.
Absolutely. The thing that these people fail to grasp is, with any kind of PR, the people say there's no such thing as bad publicity, and I would beg to differ from that, because there's certain publicity you do not want associated with you. An example would be if you're holding a paranormal event and you're doing it in sort of a bad part of a town, and the day of the event there's a lethal shooting a block away from where you're having the event. That's not good publicity. I laugh about this because I was involved with a group of people who actually put on a show that happened, and it wasn't their fault. It's just the building that they chose to use was in a borderline area, and a block over was a very bad part of the city. And where they were at, it was actually not a bad part of the city, but a block away, it was a different culture and everything else altogether. And the day of their
Newark.
No, I'm not going to mention any names about it or any locations.
I was just wondering.
Yeah, no, it wasn't Newark. It was in a worse place than Newark, but it was in a very prestigious old building, and they got a good price on it, of course, and it was a first event kind of thing, and when you're doing something for the first time, you try to do it with as least overhead as possible, and it was a very affordable event, and yet, in spite of that, the show was somewhat successful. But we kind of laughed about it the day of the show, because when I arrived on the site, he was like going, they say all publicity is good publicity, but we just had a lethal shooting a block over.
Oh, my God.
And I'm like, great, But it actually was very successful, and they're doing another show this coming year in a much better town and a much nicer venue, because they were able to bank the money that they made and reinvest it in a future show. Which is something else that's unheard of with a lot of these people. But they want to build something that's very important, and they took a chance, and they capitalized off of it. And now there's going to be a bigger, better show next year because of that. So they had a good business model. They just had a little bit of bad luck, but it didn't affect them in the end. So
I have to say, anybody who wants to do, a show, with my experience, I just say stay true to yourself, and just be yourself, stay true to yourself, and don't change when you do something like that. God knows if I didn't have Chandra, I definitely would have been, Chandra stuck true to herself. She knew what was up, and she helped me through a lot of things going on with that show.
Smelled a rat, I smelled a rat, and we just kind of kept ahead of it, is what we did.
Well, that's what you have to do, so many people get blinded by the sparkles.
The sparkle is terrible. It's sad. But you can't go in and expect you think you're going to become somebody or get on reality TV. That's what a lot of these people are trying to do. You know,
Wow.
and they lose sight that this is a legit, it's a legit field, you know, and there's really people out there that really want to know if it's real. You know, it's kind of like this wrestling deal. you know, it's wrestling. Is WWE real or what, you know?
This is what they don't realize. See, they think that reality TV is this glamorous thing.
Mm-hmm.
No.
But it's not. It's hard work.
Mm-hmm.
On the show that I'm working on, I mean, we had 18-hour days. In some cases, you know, the guys that were doing the investigation, they had 24-hour days.
Wow.
And then basically at a location for 3 days, and one of those days is a travel day.
Mm-hmm.
So you're finishing up on the third day and then traveling to the next venue, and they don't realize what that entails, because you're traveling, you're on an airline, and you've got like 87 road cases that you're carrying through baggage and checking in on carts, and everyone in line wants to kill you.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
Then you're flying to some remote location where people speak funny English, and you are out in the middle of nowhere. You shake your sheets at the hotel you're staying at, or excuse me, the motel you're staying at, because it's the only motel within a 100-mile radius, and it's not exactly the Conrad Hilton. And then you're eating at the mercy of whatever the local cuisine is. And, you know, the places we went are out of the way, remote locations that are off the beaten trail. And we did that on purpose. I mean, this was all done on purpose.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
Exactly. But I mean, some of the places we went, in all fairness, had really good accommodations and great food. Some of the places, not so much. But it doesn't make any difference, because that's what you're dealing with. And you're working 18 hours a day, and you're hauling your stuff, and you're setting your stuff up, and you're fixing your stuff because TSA went in and grabbed a handful of wires and just ripped them out because they were bored.
Yeah.
So you're constantly working. And you're working with the crew, and we have a very skeletal crew. We have one cameraman, we have one sound guy, and the cameraman is there basically to do the interview portions and everything else, because the investigation is done solo, and all the investigation filming is done by the actual investigator. So there's there's no camera crew in there, there's no sound guy in there, everything's remotely piped out. They're in there alone for 8 hours in the dark by themselves, with their only way to see is through their viewfinder of their camera. So when that fails, or something happens and it fails, they're in the total pitch darkness in the middle of this scary place. And, you know, we've gotten a lot of ragging about, you know, Chad screaming and stuff like that. But, you know, there's a psychological factor involved in the situation that we put them in that adds to that creep factor, to the point of where it breaks you to a certain degree psychologically. And particularly when you've had near-death experiences and you're starting to feel things that is your worst nightmare that you're trying to understand from something that happened when you were a child. So some of the people that are critics of the show talk about, I had this one woman who was talking about, you know, how she thinks he's a big baby and he's this and that. And I challenged her. I said, you stay 8 hours alone in one of these locations by yourself with no communication with the outside, and you go through that whole night in these active places, and you don't be startled or scream or have an issue, you know, and I'll be amazed, because I'll tell you right now, with the last episode 4, the prison episode, I was in there in broad daylight by myself, and I got startled a couple of times because of things that happened. So, and I've been doing this a long time.
And props to you guys, man, because I like my little simple life. I do. And props to you guys.
Well, it's not for everybody, but we're trying to take a baby step up from where this whole paranormal TV has been going, over and over again, the same old stuff, and nobody's going anywhere with it now. It's time to kick it up a notch, and that's what we're trying to do. The difference is we're not looking for ghosts. We know they're there already. What we're trying to do is document the mechanic of how it's happening. Why is the place haunted? what's causing the phenomena to occur. That's what we're trying to do, as well as explore the psychological factors involved in the human psyche in being exposed to this in a very vulnerable fashion.
That's pretty awesome, man.
It's a different kind of show. You know, we're doing things a little bit differently because we're going in and we're saying we picked this place because of the incredible activity that's been reported there. We know there's activity there to start with. And we know where it's taking place. So we can set up our equipment, or I can set up my equipment in a very specific location that I know has got a high probability of having activity. So we can capture these things and not just capture it, show it to the audience and say, this is what we're getting. This is what's happening here. This is not normal. Mm-hmm. You know, it's affecting the environment.
What an honor.
Mm-hmm.
It is an honor.
Yeah, it's an honor.
And the whole crew is very organic. I mean, when we started our project, the people that were on our tech crew, which was like 3 people on our tech crew, they were all skeptical and didn't believe any of it. By the 3rd episode, and our cameraman has worked on numerous very well-known paranormal shows, and was very skeptical about everything, which that in itself tells you something. By the 3rd episode, he wasn't skeptical anymore. He had been creeped out on several occasions and had things happen. So when you experience it for real, it changes your whole perspective for life.
Sure does.
Because you no longer laugh it off. You're on guard for it from that point on. You're looking to try to avoid it, you know. So that's been a fascinating behind-the-scenes thing that was occurring. And there's so much stuff that happens behind the scenes that never gets onto the show because there's just only an hour. So, but for anyone to think that they're going to get rich doing this, you're not. You may be able to eke out a supplemental income from it. The whole secret to making money is to have it go for numerous seasons, to have it go to multiple seasons per year so that you're always working, and then you have no life because you're always working, and you're not working close to home. So you are sacrificing a lot of things to do it, but to us it's worth it. But to sit there and think, oh my God, you know what my big deal is? I can't go into the local bar anymore without everybody coming around going, oh man, I saw you on TV, and that's great, but these are all people that knew me before any of this, and it's like, it's weird now because when I come in, instead of sitting down and us talking about different, stupid things of day-to-day life, we're talking about the show, which is fine. It's
and I can imagine you probably have to be more alert now on your friends, too, because I imagine people...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You never know who's going to talk behind your back. Smile it to your face and stab you in your back.
Well, it's not even that. That comes with anything. I mean, I had that before this,
Right.
I've sort of been fairly well known for a long time in the field. The difference is now is that there are people that are just plain ordinary people that see it on TV that come up and they have thousands of questions because we don't get to resolve a lot of things with answers. That's why I do a whole tech synopsis after each show and put it on YouTube. Is to try to explain some of the things that we didn't get a chance to talk about in the show, or that got left on the cutting room floor. So it's a different sort of experience because then, I thought I had stalkers before. I have some real strange stalkers now, but it's okay because that's a trade-off for being able to expose more people to what you're doing, to try to get people to think outside of the box and do the same thing in their own way.
Well, we respect you for that. We respect you guys for doing what you're doing, We do.
Well, I respect you guys for being on the show tonight and being so candid about your experience.
Anytime.
And I think that this is something that is an unturned stone for the most part in the field. Nobody wants to talk about it. No one likes to talk about it, rightly so. And I'm just really happy that you guys were able to come on tonight and share your experiences with us.
Well, we're happy to be here, and thanks again for having us on.
Yeah, thanks for your courage.
Pleasure, for sure.
Absolutely. Stephen, you have anything to add? We got about 2 minutes.
Okay, yeah. So, of course, thanks for your courage. We really do. All joking aside, takes bravery, and you're one of the first we've ever even heard really addressing this publicly. So, you're kind of at the you're kind of the tip of the spear on this. So, I wouldn't be surprised if you find other people who have been subjected to this contacting you, and maybe you can make like a little support group or some kind of umbrella or safe place for these people to speak candidly with you.
Definitely.
And if you ever do suffer consequences, you do need to let the devil's advocate know right away. And David's former law enforcement has plenty of resources that often go unnamed but have many times come in handy. And I'm a pretty tenacious guy who's not afraid to speak his mind either. So we'll have a good time of opening up the proper can of worms and whoop ass. So all that being said, though, I do need to direct my compliments to David too, because David, we're both so busy. I haven't had a chance to properly congratulate you on the show. So from first seeing it, I knew it was a really tight business model. I saw that there wasn't a camera crew to defile and further contaminate the scene and the environment. I noticed that you're keeping all the experiments exactly as you have. You're not kind of hoking them up for TV. So, not in so many words, you've been keeping it real, and you're doing a great job. I knew you would. But I see great things for the show. Chad is a high point in the show. I think it's great to see someone who's genuine.
He's our draw.
Instead of trying to act tough or something.
Yeah, I mean, everyone was so worried we wouldn't have enough drama. But, Chad, everyone says, well, he's an actor. I said, well, yeah, that's important because he isn't really a paranormal investigator. He's only been doing this for a couple of years, and he's been doing it in very controlled situations with other people in like large hunts or either on other TV shows. Did have crews around and everything when you're in there. You're not never alone.
Yeah.
And so for him, this is a whole new ball game.
Yeah.
And if you watched the last show, the infamous John Tenney broke down. And I have never seen John do that because it was so intense.
Man, he was feeling all the symptoms of a heart attack, yeah.
Yeah. He scared all of us, and it took him a while to get back to normal, if he did get back to normal. It was a very impactful episode on all of us, just because of everything that occurred in that place. And a lot of stuff didn't even make it onto the episode. There was a lot of activity in that place.
I bet.
What you get is the cream of the crop. And also what you get is shot not by a cameraman, it's shot by a static camera. And generally, there's no one at that camera when you're getting it.
Yeah. 2 episodes ago, that walking figure, any chance that was like a homeless guy hanging around or something?
No, because we go to great lengths to secure the location. We literally lock and chain doors. We keep people out. We do sweeps of the building several times before we do it. And there's only one way in and out. And that one entryway is where the RV is located, so no one's going to get by there without the outside. There's an outside, RV with Chad, and sometimes the field director is with us in the RV. One episode, I'm in the RV. In the prison episode, I was in the RV on the second night just because of the level of activity that was there, so I could monitor the equipment.
Yeah.
So we go to great lengths to not only, and this isn't showed, but we secure the environment. And we also set up for the experiments so that it's a more controlled situation. And when I use smoke, we literally sealed the room with these hardcore masking tarps that production companies use. We sealed windows, we sealed doors, and then I walked around with a pocket anemometer, which literally will measure 0.00001 miles per hour of draft, and made sure that there was no drafts of any kind in that room, so that all we would be dealing with would be normal convection currents in the room. And actually the best vortex didn't make it into the show because it didn't look good enough dramatically. But it was captured after the smoke had stabilized and layered and was no longer moving. It formed from static smoke. And to me, that was, evidence-wise, that was huge. But visually, it wasn't as impressive as the one that formed when the smoke was still being emitted into the room. So, there's a certain amount of things that go on editing-wise that's, for impact, and rightly so. And I'm not, going down on that or anything else. What we're trying to do now is get the network to release the figure walking footage so that we can analyze it and have other people analyze it to just make sure that people understand that it wasn't fake, it wasn't set up. It blew us away as much as it blew the audience away when we reviewed the footage. John actually saw it as it was happening on the remote viewer.
Yes,
but that viewer doesn't control the camera. It's a RF send out to a receiver it's just a monitor. He couldn't back up where he was.
I've got to know, David, is it just me or did the figure that walked seem awfully big?
It was tall, the arms were too long, and it was naked.
Yeah, I got all that. I thought it was really out there, man.
Yeah, it didn't look human to me because the arms came down to about, beyond mid-thigh.
Yeah.
Which made it just very inhuman looking in a lot of ways. And the funny thing is where it walked and never slowed down. It just kept a steady pace. Well, that hallway ends a few feet beyond where that door opening is. So it literally kept, it would have had to have almost started slowing down where it crossed the door, and it maintained a steady pace. And the gait was weird. I don't know if you noticed how it walked. It walked weird.
Oh, yeah, I watched it. I watched it a lot. Yeah, it's as if it's the way the relationship between the ankles and the knee was off.
It was off. It was not humanistic. It was something else, kind of differently. So we were pretty excited about that. What I was really, really going over the moon about was the shadow figure. In episode 2, where when we were at the mental hospital, and it actually absorbed the laser beam.
Yeah, that is crazy.
And the laser beam literally was absorbed by the shadow figure, and the shadow figure responded very quickly by dropping back out of sight.
Yeah.
So to me, that told me that my hypothesis that shadow figures may be made up of bio-antiphotonic life form, it may actually have suffered discomfort from being penetrated by that laser beam. And of course, it didn't print on it. It was absorbed by it, which means it either canceled out that light or literally it absorbed it completely. And didn't
penetrated by the laser beam? Word choice.
Yeah. But I mean, that laser beam was not an ink pen laser pointer.
No. It was industrial grade, which, certainly could have
it was
really gotten exciting.
Yeah, it was a very, very powerful, and we had to do that because a regular laser pointer didn't print under the infrared wash we were using to film with. You couldn't see it.
Okay.
And I had spent a lot of time. Something else you didn't know is where that shadow figure appeared. There's no way a person could have gotten back there because there was about a 3-foot high mound of construction debris that literally was piled up there to prevent you from going back there. Because during my walk around, I tried to walk back there so the audience could see what the laser looked like printing on me.
Okay.
And when I got back there, I couldn't get to that area. So
that makes
it was pitch dark. Yeah, and it was also pitch dark in the room.
So, I guess in summary, the kudos are deserved. And anyway, I appreciate the show. Yeah, tell Chad to keep doing what he's doing because it's great to see someone who is authentic instead of trying to act tough in front of a camera.
98% of the viewers are like, love it. And you're always going to have somebody that's being sent in there to stir it up, and everything. Mm-hmm. But the 98% of the people that talk to me about it are thrilled with the show. They think it's great. And that's good. It means we're doing the right thing.
Absolutely.
If we get a season 2, look for more, Good. We've got a lot of cool ideas we want to explore. So
very cool.
Yeah. When will you know if you're gonna get extended? Or sign down again.
I thought we would know something this month sometime because we've already shown 4 episodes. The 5th episode airs Thursday night, and then the last episode airs the following Thursday after that, and that's the end of season 1. We just had a short season.
About 6 weeks.
Yeah, it's just a 6 episode. They call it a British season, and that's common for a new show. A lot of times it's a speculative
Test market.
Well, when you first put a show together, it's a whole process to get it on the air, and then when you get it on the air, it's a precarious airing, because if you don't have the numbers in that first season, you're not going to get a second season.
Yeah.
So we've been very, very watchful of our numbers, and we want to drive them as high as we can get them. So we're on Twitter, we're doing all these things like during the show to get the excitement going, because we want to bring the numbers as high as we can get them, because I think the more people that watch it, the more people are going to watch it, because it is different. And we're trying to, like John says, we're trying to take baby steps up the steps to the next level. And we're not professing that we're going to do great wonders or anything else, but what we do want to do is have people think a little different and outside the box than the way they think now about it. And I think we're starting to do that. I've got a lot of people wanting to build the EMF quadrilator, and then when I tell them how much it costs, they kind of balk. It's out there for people to duplicate if they have the resources to do that. But anyway, thank you very much. I appreciate that coming from you, Stephen. We try to keep it as real as we can keep it. I mean, the whole crew is that way. The production company is that way. Everyone involved in this project is very aware of what we stand for and what we're trying to do, and they're behind that 100%. And while there were some worries about, how would we entertain people for an hour, I think all those worries kind of went out the door after the episode aired. The first episode aired, because we do have a great deal of drama in the show. And it's not planned drama. It's drama that happens as a result of what we're doing, where we're doing it. And I think that's important.
Indeed.
Well, we've run out of time, way out of time. So once again, thank you, ladies, for coming on our show and being so candid about what you've endured. And thank you, Eric, for riding shotgun with us tonight and keeping the show on the air. And,
thank you.
And
thank you. It's an honor. It was a pleasure.
Stephen, thank you for showing up tonight. It's always a pleasure when you come.
Indeed, David. Thanks very much. And I'll talk to you.
Now we could just get the intro music from you at some point.
Yeah. All right. So I'll talk to you in 2 weeks, and keep up the good work with the show.
Yeah, we'll work out when we're going to do it, because we're just sort of doing it when we can do it, whenever Eric's available and stuff. So.
Well, thanks, guys. Let us know everything. Thanks, guys, so much.
All right.
Even
Thank
David
you.
Eric.
All right, and good night. Project a funny story here. I get a lot of women send me photographs.
Interesting.
Well, I've saved them all, and I'm going to make a coffee table book. And I'm going to market it as art, because it's so abstract in its display of incredible topography that defies explanation. So I just wanted to say that, because men have this problem as well. And it's a very disturbing thing to open up your PM and Facebook and see something you can't really identify without really turning it around 3 or 4 times and then realizing, oh my God, I can't believe they sent this. So I saved them all, and I have about 2,800 photographs now. And some show faces, which will be kind of interesting.
Oh my gosh, that many photos? Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah. Well, I've been doing this a long time, so
yeah.
Yeah. So I've always entertained the idea of making kind of this artsy coffee table book, you know?
Pretty darn
For people.
interesting. I kind of
So
like it.
isn't there a law? Don't you have to have the permission of the person in the photograph, their permission to show the face?
Well,
No. We know this guy in Baltimore who knows a lawyer.
yeah,
Oh.
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's a callback.
see-
That's a callback.
The thing is if it's sent to you unsolicited, you know, it's very difficult to sue on that because Facebook is a public domain. So anything you put on Facebook essentially becomes public domain, whether you claim you own a copyright to it or not, because it's assumed in the operating wordage when you agree to join Facebook, you relinquish all rights to anything that you post on there. That's part of the terms of service. So people who say that, oh, they don't have a right to do this, I'm sorry, but if you're on Facebook, you signed away the right to control your images on there.
That's true. Mark
so-
Zuckerberg owns your picture.
Now, don't
Exactly.
get me wrong,
What would be interesting? What would be interesting is if they did take me to court, because that would be a court case to observe. I would like to request recording it.
Yeah.
Because
I
I
agree.
would like to see them explain why they're sending pictures of their nannies and
Have you been
whatever.
sending those, David? Have you been sending those pictures back out? Because I was wondering why your Twitter was trending as a hashtag needs grooming. See picture.
Yes, actually.
Oh, Lord.
That's you.
And my Twitter account actually I've out-tweeted my tweet allowance on several occasions because of the show. So, I've never had that
That's
happen
awesome.
before.
Well, in all seriousness, though, I did want to hear about Jamie's definition of sexual harassment, and then what some of her experiences were. I know, not in we don't want you to relive anything horrible, but maybe to the best of your comfort level, explain the types of things that you had been subject to.
Well, try to think how to put this. I mean, I want to say this. I would never, like, despite of my differences with this person, I would never screenshot stuff. I would never share things with anybody or put it on anywhere. You know, I'm not that type of person. You know, I'm not out to be revengeful to somebody, you know. But, you know, there were times when I would be getting texted from this person all day, all the time. What are you doing? Why haven't you talked to me? This and that. And I'm like, and the stuff he would say, you know, just about me and my physical features and about what he would do on the side. And I think that he lied about to try and get me to open up, like sexual things, to get me to open up to him, you know. And there was a point where he went in detail about sexual things and stuff, and I'm just sitting in the background like,
Married
whoa.
man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Married.
Man. Yeah, well, I don't know about now, but yeah.
But
Wow.
it's hard because I don't want to go too much in super detail about things, but
Well, and you don't need to. I mean, Stephen just wants to get a general idea of the content of the stuff that you were getting. I mean, we don't want you to.
Yeah, it was definitely, you know, full on, you know, it was almost like porno talk, I guess, in a way.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is it true that you had been sent a photo? You were confused. Is this true? There's some rumor on the internet. You thought it was a baby's thumb, and that's what ended your relationship with this talk show host.
No,
This could be true. I'm not going to confirm it, but
This is what happens. This is what happens when you let an academic get involved in a sexual harassment conversation.
I'm sorry.
classic.
All
That's
right. Now,
fucking
you've been
classic.
very descriptive. So maybe Chandra can step to the plate and share, maybe to the best of her comfort level. Again, we don't want anyone to relive anything terrible or kind of, we want you to exercise your Fifth Amendment rights and not really mention anything you've been involved with. But we do want to give the audience a flavor of just the type of things attractive people can be subject to in the paranormal when it becomes about something other than the research and the interest.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. That's what I was brought onto. I was like a piece of meat, to draw people to come on. I felt very much used as to
Good evening, everybody. This is Dave Roundtree and my co-host, Dr. Stephen Rourke, here for another exciting episode of The Devil's Advocate. Coming to you tonight pre-recorded, but we're coming to you anyway, in spite of all that. Good evening, Stephen.
Hey, David.
How are you doing tonight? It's always a pleasure when you show up.
That's good. I like that.
You had to see that one coming, right?
Oh, yeah.
Tonight we have two very special guests. We have Jamie Geller and we have Chandra Stull. Both of these young ladies have a very colorful presence in the paranormal field. They're on Facebook. Both of them have been involved in radio work, paranormal radio work. And both of them have been involved in actually doing paranormal investigations. And let's get started. First, Jamie, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, hello, David. Thank you again for having me on. It's an honor to be on your show. Well, I guess I don't have a whole lot of paranormal experience as you do, but I'm slowly learning. And like you said, I was on a paranormal radio show for a little while. And I'm just I went off of that for some reasons, but I'm just kind of taking it day to day now and just doing my own thing pretty much. And I like doing little guest spots here and there on the radio shows. It's still fun. I miss it. I love being on the radio. Chandra and I are kind of a little duo. Each other are, but not a whole lot been going on with me though. But I've just been living life day to day, and just to give you a little bit, I did a radio show for about, I think it was about six months or so, and enjoyed it, and I don't regret it, but there were some issues with the radio that I chose to leave, and we can go on further to that here in a minute. But that's about it for now.
Well, we're going to explore that in a little bit here, but let's hear from Chandra. Chandra, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, David. Real good, and this is kind of awesome. I totally miss radio. Yeah, I would love to get back into it. It was kind of sad what happened to me, and that it didn't make any sense what happened to me. I'm learning and growing for sure. You get in the business a little bit. You start meeting people, and it's hard to fish out the fake from reality. That I can tell you.
Yeah. Besides, you get to meet all kinds of strange and unusual.
Brought in, and it was so I took a slight leap from the show for a little while because I had some things going on in my life. I said I'll be back, but I just need to figure some things out. And on top of all that wasn't really perceived well, I think. And then there was a lot of I think sexual harassment that Chandra and I took from the show. I know, like to do that. But
it's an understatement, this harassment.
Yeah, so basically, on top of that, and with the main person of the show, And on top of the lies and the drama factor of everything that had to happen with the show, just was like, I didn't want to be a part of it. I don't want the drama. I don't want the bullshit. And I just said, peace out. I'm done with it. And, I'm sure Shauna will go in a little more detail about things because she kind of got the brunt of it toward the end of the show, being targeted and being called names and put down, and it was just not right. So we both chose to leave because we stood by each other and we said, we'll just fucking move on, and we just faded away from it. So I'll let you, Chandra, kind of take over and give your part of it.
Before we go to Chandra, I want to give Stephen the opportunity to cross-examine.
Sure.
Oh, absolutely.
Stephen, do you have questions at this point?
I do, yeah. So I noticed that a passing mention was made of sexual harassment, but a lot of people have varying degrees of understanding of that. For example, in the workplace, some work cultures are such that if you tell someone they look beautiful today, that's considered sexual harassment. I hardly believe that's what you're talking about. So could you expand a little bit upon what you mean by sexual harassment? That would be, first, Jamie, you tell what that meant to you and some of your experiences. And then, of course, when Chandra is up, she'll tell some of her experiences.
Sure. I don't want to get into explicit detail about certain things, but when I first, before I got on the show, the main person of the show, pretty much, sent me a message, pretty much, I guess, what is it called, like sexting or sending, like, you getting in the shower, stuff like that. And I'm like, what the fuck is this, And I screenshotted it to Chandra and stuff. And
gosh! All right, hold on, Jamie. I'm sorry, Jamie. I'm gonna have to erase the text I was about to send you.
Damn it!
I'm sorry. Continue.
Okay, all right.
So you were getting sexting. I hope he didn't send any pictures.
No, it's thank God, no. It's not like it wasn't offered, and it was declined, for sure, at some point. I've made my mistake in doing some things in my life, but, shit, I'm like, I don't want to see that shit. So...
I just want to introduce our people. And speaking of which, we're going to go into that. Actually, tonight. Yeah. Now, you two are kind of like this dynamic duo, and you actually even favor one another a little bit. You could actually pass as sisters, I think, which is kind of cool.
Awesome.
But you guys are actually working for a radio show. You were both working for the same show. And I am pretty fully aware of some of the things that went on there and who it's involved with, but we won't mention any names or anything on this. But I think it's important that our listeners kind of get an understanding of the subculture that is riding on the coattails of people who are actually doing paranormal investigating and even people that are doing bona fide research. There's this subculture of, I like to call them hangers-on, because they don't really do anything for the field themselves other than milk it for what they can get out of it. And your experience basically was involved with just such a person. So you were both working like at a radio station or at a radio show. Station is an incorrect term for this. And it started out pretty good, right?
Mm-hmm. I'll give you a little history on it. Chandra and I knew each other before we started the show. We met on Twitter. And we clicked right away. Come to find out, she lives in an area where I grew up in, and I'm originally from. She lives like an hour from my brother and my family, and we just connected really well. And then she started doing the show, and then the person who was in charge of the show at the time kind of sent me this odd message at one point, and I didn't really know who he was. And I told Chandra about it. And she kind of took care of the situation for me, because Chandra and I tell each other everything. Everybody's got to know that we are like sisters. And Yes. So she took care of it, and then after that, I was asked to do promotions for the show. So I started doing promotions, and then after the first or second show with Chandra, I was asked to be on as a co-host. So I said, sure, what the hell, I'll give it a shot. And, everything went good in the beginning, and, I've met a lot of amazing people that I've created great relationships with from the show. Like I said, I don't regret it, but then it got to a point where I just felt like I was being manipulated and brainwashed, and it almost felt like a full-time job, and I didn't want that. And with no pay, exactly, asking to do more and more and more, and I was just like, what the fuck, this is not what I thought it was going to be like. And then, it got to a point where the lies were being told, and now I realize they were lies. At the time I was getting more brainwashed because, I guess I'm not an egotistical person, but I guess my ego was being stroked and being told all these good things and stuff, and, you're like, okay, well, I'm doing good. I want to be, do well for the show. I want the show to do well, so, and just continue to do it. And then, it came down to it, another person was